The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey there, everybody. We're just going to wait a few minutes for everyone to join us, and we'll get started at the top of the hour. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. This is Ashley, by the way. Welcome to our summer town hall. We're really excited that you guys are able to join us and super excited to talk about a few really large topics that we've been working on and to get you guys some more information. So today I am joined by Phil Thompson, also a member of our client experience team.
Hello. Glad you could join us.
Yes. And so I think what I'll do is just hop right in and get started. I think we have most folks here, and this will be recorded, so we'll get you that information as well after. So today's town hall is brought to you by the acronyms GDPR and ADA. No, we're not going to be making fun of these topics today. They're both very important. So we really wanted to give you guys an overview of how they're affecting your website now and moving into the future. So the first topic that I'll be covering today is going to be GDPR, and then Phil will get into ADA later on here. But as you can see, GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. This was actually initiated by the European Union and has actually caused a large ripple effect throughout the internet. You'll notice that this topic has been receiving a lot of buzz because it has an impact on how your website will actually collect, retain, and allow your users to manage their personal data. This isn't any sort of marketing or promotional issue. This really is a legal issue. It actually took effect on May 25th, so you've probably been seeing a lot of new messages popping up on all kinds of websites you've visited since then, and you probably also received some email notifications about it as well. So if it sounds like a big deal, well, it really is, but we definitely don't want you to fret or fear over here at Saffire. We've been doing a lot of behind the scenes to help make sure that you comply with these new EU standards, and also some additional steps you can take to ensure that your website is compliant. So now diving in and talking a little bit about cookies. No, not the edible kind. Cookies are actually a small piece of data that's sent from a website and stored on the user's computer. So cookies are used to remember names, addresses, shopping cart details, all sorts of things that make it easier and faster for your users to interact with a website. So in Saffire version 4.6.5, which came out a few weeks ago, we included a new cookie manager banner at the bottom of your website. So you'll see that highlighted here. So in this space, your users, your site visitors can select accept cookies, or they can manage their cookie settings. This is now a legal requirement, so you will see that at the bottom of the site. If a user accepts the cookies running on your site, they will not see this message again for an entire year, so that banner will no longer be showing. The other option they have, if they're deciding they want to manage their cookie settings, they can easily toggle the various categories of cookies on and off. You'll notice here in this screenshot that essential cookies can't be turned off. They are necessary for the site to function. However, it is a legal requirement to notify your users of them. One thing you may want to be aware of is a user can actually turn your analytics cookies off. This will have an impact on your Google Analytics and your tracking on your web traffic, but that is their option if they wanted to toggle off that information. You'll also see performance and functionality cookies. They're in play to help remember preferential settings and account details within the website to help speed up performance. So another change that came with GDPR compliance is your email sign-up link. So we've actually updated all your automatic and email text message sign-up fields to be a new small pop-up window. So now when someone clicks and selects get updates on the link or icon on your website, it will open up a window that includes your organization name, giving the user a very clear idea of who is collecting that information and what you plan to do with it. The third part of GDPR update is actually included in the privacy and terms. So now your privacy and terms are called privacy terms and cookies, but you'll see in the screenshot here that it's still in the same location. So under settings, general site info, and then privacy terms and cookies. So we've actually made it very super easy for you to update that content to be in compliance. All you need to do is click the button that you see highlighted there at the bottom. However, before you go ahead and do that, make sure if you have entered any custom content in your privacy and terms, please copy that to a document somewhere first. Then you can click that link to update your website to the new default terms. And then after that's done, you can add your custom content back in. A couple other things that we want to point out with GDPR is to make your online forms very clear as to why you're collecting personal information. Things that you'll want to clarify on your forms is telling users why you need that information, telling them what you plan to do with that information, as well as telling users how long you plan on retaining that information is going to be really important. Another thing is if you've had Saffire integrate a pixel or retargeting ad, they are likely associated cookies in play on your website. So we need to be sure that your pixels are still functional after the 4.6.5 release. And we should also probably get together to perform an audit of your pixel and retargeting ads to ensure they're compliant with the settings that we've mentioned above. So if you have any questions about that, or if you want to take a look, go ahead and give your coach a shout out. And then we'll be able to answer any questions or concerns you have about that. So just kind of wrapping up GDPR, we realize that online privacy issues are only going to continue to become more important. You probably already noticed most of the respectable online services you use are forcing similar acceptances of updated privacy policies and cookie settings. So really our goal is to provide a clear path to all users for understanding the information we collect. We want to make sure that it's polite and as unobtrusive as possible. And as always, here at Saffire, we have your back, and we hope you are really rest assured that you're on the leading edge of personal data protection compliance without having to do a lot at all on your end. So yeah, that's about it with GDPR. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Phil, where he's going to talk a bit about our other acronym, ADA.
Thanks, Ashley. All right, let's dive into ADA compliance, also known as web accessibility. There's a lot of things to cover here, so we're going to look at it from different aspects. First and foremost, we're going to take a look at, you need to understand what ADA compliance really is, what it takes to meet the requirements, some best practices I'm going to give you for implementing ADA compliance or getting closer to it on your website, how you can test your website, and what we're doing at Saffire to improve our platform so that you can get closer to ADA compliance. So let's jump right in here. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is something that we actually found while we were doing some research for this presentation, is a page on the ada.gov website. And if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, you know that the last time that page was updated was, a mere 11 years ago, which is kind of comical, actually, because in that 11-year span, the iPhone was introduced. You probably heard of that, along with all the other smartphones that are on the market. The iPhone alone has been updated like 9 or 10 times since its introduction. And obviously, smartphones have radically changed our world and in turn have completely changed every possible way we consume web-based content. So whatever information is on this page that has not been updated for 11 years, probably is not up to date either. So even a government website sometimes is not as up to date and compliant as it should be. Just wanted to point that out to you. So what is ADA to us? Well, our take on ADA is that there's really no 100% guaranteed one-stop shop for compliance testing. There are lots of tools out there to help you incrementally test, and there's quite a bit of subjectivity in areas like color blindness that leave room for interpretation and different levels of compliance. It's really difficult to know when you're done. When do you cross the finish line? Well, you really don't, because technology continues to evolve. And that certainly includes the Saffire platform. To get your head a little deeper into this topic, here's what all of us are challenged with. Take a look at this. Think about it. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans have a disability. Based on the data, we can generally classify disabilities into 4 different areas, each with unique website challenges you may never have thought of, such as 19.2 million people have difficulty using a mouse, a trackball, stylus, or any other type of input device, including a keyboard. 15.2 million struggle with page flow, navigation, forms, and interactive tasks. 8.1 million deal with color blindness and overall blindness in varying degrees, and 7.6 million have impaired hearing and rely on captioning and transcripts for understanding what's on your website. Why is this important to you as we manage your website? Well, because it's a challenge that will continue to grow. By 2030, the entire baby boomer generation will be of retirement age. And as our population ages, more and more people will be dealing with disabilities. Huge numbers to consider there. According to the ADA News and Insights blog, over 7,500 businesses were faced with ADA-related litigation in 2017. It's a big number. And in every industry, this number is growing. But so is our understanding of what we need to do to provide adequate online experiences for our friends with disabilities. Look at this last number. a 181% increase in litigation since 2013. Kind of scary. So here's what we need to understand. This is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also called WCAG. You may hear it referred to that. There's 3 different levels of compliance. Level A, which is basic web accessibility, really is considered not acceptable. If someone's shooting for level A compliance, they're shooting pretty low. Level AA compliance is handling most of the large and common barriers that disabled people have with using your website. And that is the level of compliance which is considered standard. And that's the level of compliance that Saffire intends to help you with. Level AAA compliance is the most strict and strongest accessibility rules, really only applies to definitely government websites, except obviously that ada.gov website. And it's really more for websites that are there for as a resource, not so much as a marketing tool, which really is the way that all of us use our websites, right? As a marketing tool. If you go to AAA compliance, you're pretty much deciding, no, I really don't need this to be a marketing tool. I just want to have a bunch of information available and make it as accessible as possible. So what is accessibility according to the WCAG principles? Well, these are the 4 main topics. It needs to be something that can be seen and heard, okay, the content and the user interface components. It needs to be something that the user can interact with. It needs to be something that the user can understand. And the last one, it needs to be robust. And what that means is that all the tools and content that you make available on your website, they need to remain accessible as all the tools evolve. As technology changes, the website has to change to go with it. And the way that people can interact with the website has to change too. That's kind of a moving target. But today, I want to give you some basic ideas on what you can do to help your website in compliance. And first and foremost, we're going to look at link text. So every link should make sense if the link text is read by itself. In other words, it needs to have context. It can't be something simple like what we've all used on websites for years. The examples here are click here, continue. If someone is vision impaired and they're relying on a screen reader to actually read all the text on the screen to them, if they were to mouse over something and it simply said click here, they would have no idea why they would click here. It needs to be something more specific, such as click here to register for the parade, or click here to buy tickets for the show. And it probably even needs to be specific to the name of the show as well. If you're putting a link in the text, keep those URLs short. I mean, can you imagine a screen reader reading to you, link to https://google.com, and that's short. Imagine, some of the URLs that you've seen that get much longer than that. Nobody wants to listen to that, and really it'd be very hard to comprehend as well. So tip number 2, alt tags for images. Alt, that equals alternative text for non-textual content, such as images, video, and audio. You need to add meaningful alt tags, okay, for any images that actually need to convey meaning. Now, if an image is just for visual interest, meaning if it makes up part of the theme of your website, it's really just for simply visual interest. I guess that's the best way to put that. Anyway, an alt tag can be used. That is acceptable according to the standards. Now, you do need to add an alt tag to your logo, especially if it's a link to the home page. That's one thing to keep in mind, definitely. And you definitely need to write good alt tags. And there is a difference between good and bad alt tags. Alt tags, they need to present the content and the function of the image. Always think context. They can't be redundant. You don't want them repeating what was in adjacent text or a caption, or even right next to another image. You don't want the 2 images to say the same thing. They need to avoid using phrases like image of or graphic of, because popular screen readers, there's the most popular screen readers called JAWS, will actually precede alternative text with the word graphic. So it's automatically telling you that you're looking at an image. You just need to tell them what's inside that image. Okay, so tip number 3, page structure. You want to use structure that actually makes sense. I know that seems incredibly logical, but The page structure on an HTML page is built by using the proper tags themselves. Like an H1 tag is always the largest headline. H2 is smaller, H3 is smaller than that, H4 is smaller than that. But then you also want to use bullets and block quotes and then paragraph tags in the proper way, meaning you want to use all of this structure to preserve the hierarchy, not as a way of emphasizing the text. And it's really hard to get around that sometimes. It's very easy to look at the page structure and think that that's how you're emphasizing the text. But maybe emphasis really should be something that's italicized as opposed to something that is a larger font. And one thing that we all need to avoid is using color as a way of indicating information. So if you have someone who's colorblind and you're only using color to put emphasis on a particular graphic or on a piece of text, they're not going to know that. It's not going to be obvious to them. Keep in mind, color blindness affects 8% of men. That's around 25 million men with color blindness. And there is a way that you can kind of go in and test things. So this, what I'm showing you here, is the WebAIM contrast checker, which provides absolutely free a simple tester for foreground and background colors, and you can plug in the colors. You can plug in the hex codes if you want to, or you can use the little slider to find different colors. Notice that the colors on this very page, the blue, sapphire blue background with the yellow text I've chosen, it fails 3 out of 4 tests, which you see over on the left-hand side under normal text and large text. Now, obviously, we're not terribly concerned about the AAA failure because that's really going above and beyond. But that AA failure on the normal text, that is concerning. What it means is if there were like 12 men who are watching this right now, odds are that one of them is having difficulty reading this page. So in order to fix that, by changing the slider under the background color, I was able to find a color which does provide appropriate contrast for 3 out of 4 tests. So I added as a background color behind the URL at the bottom to help that guy who's been struggling to read things. And you can see what a change it actually makes. Well, it's great that you can read that, but that's no longer sapphire blue. And this is a huge challenge for designers and anyone trying to adhere to brand standards. Because in order to get that correct contrast, sometimes you can't use those colors that your company has been relying on. It's a brand standard that's been in place maybe for decades. And our own creative director, Jeremy, absolutely goes into a rage when discussing this. I've had that conversation with him because he has spent many, many years establishing the branding for Saffire. And our brand guidelines don't contain provisions for this. All of our branding was created decades ago, and now it has become an issue of color. So we all use websites as an extension or flagship of our marketing, right? So each of us have to decide when and where we're willing to make compromises with our brand guidelines in order to make our sites truly compliant. All right, tip number 5, captions and transcripts. Video and audio are actually required to have both captions and a transcript. So if you just simply have a video, you actually need to go into that. Let's say it's a video of an interview. You need to have a written transcript that's available that someone would be able to look at if they are unable to hear what's in the video. Let's see, these captions and transcripts, they need to be accessible. And the cool thing is that YouTube now is allowing you to add captions to videos with their tools, and you can even add a separate description track, which will help you describe what's going on in the video. But in some ways, this is a little bit easier than adding alt tags because you have outside tools that are actually helping you. Now, here's one that you can implement very easily in your website. Keep in mind that screen readers typically will announce words aloud, so it has to know what language the page is in. Now, by default, all the Saffire sites default to English language, which means if you come across a foreign phrase and you're listening to a screen reader, in the example I have here on the screen, it says "c'est la vie," it may pronounce it as "c'est la vie" because it doesn't know that's supposed to be French. So what you're seeing here is there is a span tag that's been wrapped around that particular phrase with the language attribute of French. And then the screen reader would, even though it's reading the rest of the page in English, it would know to read that one phrase in French. This is really easy to do. you can actually do this in a text gallery module within Saffire, and just go into the HTML tag, and you could add that you could wrap any phrase with that span tag. Then we get into testing the site, and this is really the best way to ensure accessibility. You can do a lot of testing on your own. It will take considerable time, but it won't cost you anything. Or you can hire an outside company, and they could probably do it a little bit faster, but it will cost you a considerable amount of money. Okay. Some things that you can look at as far as doing your own testing is try it with a keyboard. You can try it in monochrome. You can get your own screen reader and listen to what your website sounds like as it's being read. If you want to go the route of using an accessibility testing company, one thing to keep in mind is cost, in that the company will do a thorough check of your website. They will come back with recommendations, and in order to actually apply all of those recommendations, you could easily be into 6 figures for AAA compliance. Now, I know that's overkill because we're only talking about AA, but you can just knock off a figure. You can pretty much count on it being 5 figures for AA compliance if you have an outside company come in and do all that work for you. Now, there are some Chrome plugins which can help you. If you just do a Google search for Chrome accessibility plugins, there are several that can be used, and you'll note it may even be worth adding links to those on your website, so that the end user would be able to go and find those plugins, download them, and be able to access your website better. Here's a testing tool that is absolutely free, and it's actually a really good tool. The only downside to it is it only will check a single page at a time. This particular site is called Amazon. You may have heard of it. It's a really big site, and they sell a lot of stuff, but if you notice over on the left-hand side, there's a lot of errors. And what that's telling you is these are the kind of errors that really have to be fixed in order to be in compliance. Now, what you're not seeing below that, it goes from red to yellow to green. And the yellow stuff is, hey, here's something you might want to be aware of that's not really super cool, but it's not uncompliant. And then the green stuff is telling you, hey, you're good to go with this stuff. But all of those reds are definite errors, which mean it is not in compliance. And this is a very recent screenshot. There are a lot of websites that you see on a daily basis which are not compliant. So hopefully that makes you feel a little better about your own website if you've run the test on here. Let's see, there's other tools besides Wave. This one's called Power Mapper, and this one you do have to pay for, but it will map your entire website as opposed to just one page at a time. And then here is a Chrome plugin. Actually, it's also good for Firefox too, that you can download, and you can actually check your website using the extension built right into your browser. This particular one's checking the White House website, and you can see, oh look, there's been some violations at the White House. Anyway, so to sum all this up, you can see that Accessibility 1, it doesn't say that here, but it's not easy. It is the law, though, but that's not the only reason that it's important. It's important because it affects so many people. You can start implementing improvements on your site immediately. By using the Wave tool, you can do a quick check on it, and you can go in and fix different things on your site. And you should be aware of all that. So use the simple tools to begin with, and if you need to go above and beyond that, look for better tools or even an outside company that can help you with compliance. Now, as far as helping you with compliance, Saffire is very focused on this. In fact, it is a major task that we're undertaking for the second half of this year. And our goal is to have the entire Saffire platform, WCAG 2.0 AA compliant by the end of 2018. 2 major things that will include is site-wide images will be labeled appropriately. These are the images that you don't really have access to because they're built in, they just make up the design of your website. And you will have tools available to label imagery that you've uploaded through Spark. Okay? Both of those should be in place by the end of this year. It will require some time on your part to go back in and add those alt tags to images which are already on your website. I didn't say this was going to be easy, but the tools will be available to you soon. So anyway, those are what we have. That's what we're up against. This is what we're bringing to you to help you with compliance. And I hope you understand that compliance is an issue for every website, and some websites are dealing with it better than others, obviously. Here's some additional reference information for you. The best information that I would go by is that the one on the bottom, the WebAIM WCAG checklist. Go to the webaim.org standards WCAG checklist, and you will see some things that you need to be doing on your own. So I hope you've picked up a few things that you'll be able to use, and I think that pretty much wraps up everything that I had to say about this. Ashley, anything else on GDPR?
No, I think we basically covered it.
Okay.
So I know we're ending this webinar a little bit early, but we did want to give you some time to ask any questions. So there should be a little question box that you guys can fill out. Any questions that you might have about GDPR, ADA, we will try to answer them the best we can. But some of them we might just talk to you guys directly if they're really specific. But if you have any questions, feel free to fill that out and let us know. We'll wait a minute or two on those.
We do really appreciate you joining us today. Obviously, you have an interest in these two topics, which are really hot topics. So at anytime you want to talk to anyone from Saffire concerning these, please don't hesitate to contact us. We're learning as we go along, too. We just try to stay a couple steps ahead of you. That's all.
Exactly. All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions so far, but if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to your coach directly. We'll also have this presentation available to you, and we can send that out to you as well. But other than that, I think we are going to wrap this up. And yeah, again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, thanks. Bye.